The general idea behind RAID is to employ a group of hard drives together with some form of duplication, either to increase reliability or to speed up operations. RAID originally stood for Redundant Array of Inexpensive Disks, and was designed to use a bunch of cheap small disks in place of one or two larger more expensive ones. Today, RAID systems employ large, possibly expensive disks as their components, switching the definition to independent disks. Improvement of reliability via redundancy. The more disks a system has, the greater the likelihood that one of them will go bad at any given time. Hence, increasing disks on a system actually decreases the mean time to failure of the system. If, however, the same data was copied onto multiple disks, then the data would not be lost unless both copies of the data were damaged simultaneously, which is a much lower probability than for a single disk going bad. More specifically, the second disk would have to go bad before the first disk was repaired, which brings the mean time to repair into play. For example, if two disks were involved, each with a MTTF of 100,000 hours and a MTTR of 10 hours, then the mean time to data loss would be 500 times 10 to the 6 hours, or 57,000 years. This is the basic idea behind disk mirroring, in which a system contains identical data on two or more disks. Note that a power failure, during a write operation, could cause both disks to contain corrupt data, if both disks were writing simultaneously at the time of the power failure. One solution is to write to the two disks in series, so that they will not both become corrupted by a power failure. An alternate solution involves non-volatile RAM as a write cache, which is not lost in the event of a power failure and which is protected by error-correcting codes. Mirroring provides reliability but is expensive. Striping improves performance, but does not improve reliability. Accordingly, there are a number of different schemes that combine the principles of mirroring and striping in different ways, in order to balance reliability versus performance versus cost. These are described by different RAID levels, as follows. In the diagram that follows, C indicates a copy, and P indicates parity, i.e., checksum bits. RAID level 0. This level includes striping only, with no mirroring. RAID level 1. This level includes mirroring only, no striping. RAID level 2. This level stores error-correcting codes on additional disks, allowing for any damaged data to be reconstructed by subtraction from the remaining undamaged data. Note that this scheme requires only 3 extra disks to protect 4 disks worth of data, as opposed to full mirroring. RAID level 3. This level is similar to level 2, except that it takes advantage of the fact that each disk is still doing its own error detection, so that when an error occurs, there is no question about which disk in the array has the bad data. As a result, a single parity bit is all that is needed to recover the lost data from an array of disks. Level 3 also includes striping, which improves performance. The downside with the parity approach is that every disk must take part in every disk access, and the parity bits must be constantly calculated and checked, reducing performance. Hardware-level parity calculations, and NVRAM cache can help with both of those issues. In practice, Level 3 is greatly preferred over Level 2. RAID Level 4. This level is similar to Level 3, employing block-level striping instead of bit-level striping. The benefits are that multiple blocks can be read independently, and changes to a block only require writing 2 blocks rather than involving all disks. Note that new disks can be added seamlessly to the system provided they are initialized to all zeros, as this does not affect the parity results. RAID Level 5. This level is similar to level 4, except the parity blocks are distributed over all disks, thereby more evenly balancing the load on the system. For any given block on the disks, one of the disks will hold the parity information for that block, and the other N1 disks will hold the data. Note that the same disk cannot hold both data and parity for the same block, as both would be lost in the event of a disk crash. RAID Level 6 – This level extends RAID Level 5 by storing multiple bits of error recovery codes, for each bit position of data, rather than a single parity bit. There are also two RAID levels which combine RAID levels 0 and 1, aka striping and mirroring, in different combinations, designed to provide both performance and reliability, at the expense of increased cost. RAID level 0 plus 1 disks are first striped, and then the striped disks mirrored to another set. This level generally provides better performance than RAID level 5. RAID level 1 plus 0 mirrors disks in pairs, and then stripes the mirrored pairs. The storage capacity, performance, etc. are all the same, but there is an advantage to this approach in the event of multiple disk failures, as illustrated. In diagram A, the 8 disks have been divided into 2 sets of 4, each of which is striped, and then one stripe set is used to mirror the other set. If a single disk fails, it wipes out the entire stripe set, but the system can keep on functioning using the remaining set. However, if a second disk from the other stripe set now fails, then the entire system is lost, as a result of 2 disk failures. In diagram B, the same 8 disks are divided into 4 sets of 2, each of which is mirrored, and then the file system is striped across the 4 sets of mirrored disks. If a single disk fails, then that mirror set is reduced to a single disk, but the system rolls on, and the other 3 mirror sets continue mirroring. Now if a second disk fails, then another one of the mirror sets is reduced to a single disk, but the system can continue without data loss. In fact, the second arrangement could handle as many as 4 simultaneously failed disks, as long as no 2 of them were from the same mirror pair. Trade-offs in selecting the optimal RAID level for a particular application include cost, volume of data, need for reliability, need for performance, and rebuild time, the latter of which can affect the likelihood that a second disk will fail while the first failed disk is being rebuilt. Other decisions include how many disks are involved in a RAID set, and how many disks to protect with a single parity bit. More disks in the set increases performance but increases cost. Protecting more disks per parity bit saves cost, but increases the likelihood that a second disk will fail before the first bad disk is repaired. RAID concepts have been extended to tape drives, e.g., striping tapes for faster backups or parity checking tapes for reliability, and for broadcasting of data. RAID protects against physical errors, but not against any number of bugs or other errors that could write erroneous data. ZFS adds an extra level of protection by including data block checksums in all nodes, along with the pointers to the data blocks. If data are mirrored and one copy has the correct checksum, and the other does not, then the data with the bad checksum will be replaced with a copy of the data with the good checksum. This increases reliability greatly over RAID alone, at a cost of a performance hit that is acceptable because ZFS is so fast to begin with. Another problem with traditional file systems is that the sizes are fixed, and relatively difficult to change. Where RAID sets are involved, it becomes even harder to adjust file system sizes, because a file system cannot span across multiple file systems. ZFS solves these problems by pooling RAID sets, and by dynamically allocating space to file systems as needed. File system sizes can be limited by quotas, and space can also be reserved to guarantee that a file system will be able to grow later, but these parameters can be changed at any time by the filesystem's owner. Otherwise, file systems grow and shrink dynamically as needed. The concept of stable storage involves a storage medium in which data is never lost, even in the face of equipment failure in the middle of a write operation. To implement this requires 2 or more copies of the data, with separate failure modes. An attempted disk writes results in one of 3 possible outcomes. The data is successfully and completely written. The data is partially written, but not completely. The last block written may be garbled. And no writing takes place at all. Whenever an equipment failure occurs during a write, the system must detect it, and return the system back to a consistent state. To do this, requires 2 physical blocks for every logical block, and the following procedure. Write the data to the first physical block. After step 1 had completed, then write the data to the second physical block. Declare the operation complete only after both physical writes have completed successfully. During recovery, the pair of blocks is examined. If both blocks are identical, and there is no sign of damage, then no further action is necessary. If one block contains a detectable error but the other does not, then the damaged block is replaced with the good copy. If neither block shows damage but the data in the blocks differ, then replace the data in the first block with the data in the second block. Because the sequence of operations described above is slow, stable storage usually includes NVRAM as a cache, and declares a write operation complete once it has been written to the NVRAM.